Hey everybody, welcome back to Experience Points, a less formal, more laid-back sort of video series where I talk about games that I'm playing but haven't yet finished, and today we're taking a look at Star Ocean: The Divine Force, made by Tri-Ace and published by Square-Enix. This game just came out very recently, and I feel like it's kind of getting slept on a little bit, unfortunately, because it's actually really good so far. Based on my, so far I'm about like 8 to 10 hours in so far, and I'm playing at a kind of a leisurely pace, which is pretty typical for me, but I've really been kind of taking my time with it and savoring it and just letting it all kind of sink in. So the game starts off kind of like in this very Star Wars-y sort of setting where you play as Rey and you're aboard a spacecraft. They're doing some cargo runs, but they get attacked by a Federation ship and they ended up getting jettisoned out in escape pods and crash land on an alien planet that's a little underdeveloped. Pretty typical kind of stuff for Star Ocean. I think that whole mixing and mashing of medieval settings with the space sci-fi stuff is kind of their thing, and I feel really good about the way that this one is kind of starting. It allows Rey to crash land on this alien planet where the people that he first encounters are Letitia and Albert, and they help him out when he gets attacked by a monster hanging out in the wilderness. So that sort of like sets the stage for this whole adventure, and he starts trying to track down some of his other companions who may have also crash landed on this planet. So that's kind of what sets him off in this adventure with Albert and with Letitia, and they kind of go off looking for one of those people who may have crash landed when they find a cargo pod from his ship. And that's where he finds the Duma, which is kind of this game's MacGuffin, the thing that allows him to do the really cool flying around and gliding thing that you've no doubt seen in all of the trailers. And it just helps inform the whole design of the rest of the game, basically, because it's all about exploration, and it's not an open world. There's definitely zones, but it's definitely crafted in such a way that you don't feel the boundaries so much as you would in a lot of other games. It's kind of like Dragon Quest XI if you ended up playing that. The characters themselves kind of feel like they were originally created with some very specific anime style archetypes in mind, you know? So when you first meet Letitia, you kind of get the vibe that maybe she's like the Shrine Maiden sort, and then her protector Albert is the uptight, stuffy sort. At this point, it kind of feels a lot like the localization team is doing a lot of heavy lifting. I feel like the localization team has been doing a fantastic job so far of giving really good characterization to these characters, really helping them feel unique and going above and beyond just the archetypes that were probably laid out for them. The team who did the voice acting for this game is also stellar. Hands down, a really great job so far. Though if Japanese voice acting is more your thing, and totally, you know, hats off to you if you do, definitely you have that option right there in the options, which is really nice. This game, by the way, has so many options, and I'm really glad that it does. It allows for a lot of flexibility and giving you choices for how you want to enjoy the game. I played on PlayStation 5, so it even gave me an option to change the like high fidelity mode versus high frame rate mode. I will say, based off of just my old man eyes, that I can see the difference between 30 and 60, but I don't necessarily feel like it's game breaking. But what I will tell you is that in the high fidelity mode, it didn't really, to my eye, look any better than the 60 frames per second mode. So I went ahead and played for the most part in 60 frames per second mode or in high frame rate mode, and I could definitely tell the difference, and probably what I would recommend to most of you out there if you're looking at getting this on PS5 and playing through it. Despite the fact that like in high fidelity mode it doesn't like look extra good, it still looks really good on my PlayStation 5, and that works really well. I was talking a little bit about how when you have Duma, it kind of changes the nature of the game. It feels very much more like a sightseeing sort of RPG. The environment looks really awesome. You go through a lot of, so far at least in the early game, some settings that don't feel like your typical lush green everything. Like there's some of that in some places, but there's like canyons, and then there's these like deciduous forests that are like, they all have that golden, like, you know, like the reddish and golden leaves of fall in the northeastern United States. It feels kind of like that, and just it's breathtaking, and the skyscapes are just absolutely a treasure. Now, I think that it's not all rainbows and sunshine. Some of it is also the ocean. I feel like, there's a scene where your attention kind of gets brought to the ocean, and it doesn't really look really great, unfortunately, but the rest of the game really does look really great. And that's one of the other good things about having the Duma. Being able to fly around and glide around really adds a whole other level to this sense of exploration. I feel like everything kind of gets compared to Breath of the Wild because, I mean, that's a game that made a lot of waves with that whole climbing stuff and gliding down and flying around sort of mechanic. And I'm happy to see that kind of be explored with other genres. And the fact that you can use the Duma to get up really high, really quickly, and to zoom around for not like a really long amount of ways. Like, you can't just fly forever, but the fact that you can do that to kind of traverse a lot of land quickly really helps expedite the process of going from, point A to point B. But if you feel like taking a leisurely route, you can find some extra cool stuff. Like, there's extra boss fights that you can find, treasure chests that are hidden out of way. And that's one of the other cool functions of the Duma, is that it allows you to kind of like scan the area for like not a super long range, but you can tell usually within like 50 feet of your character. And I think you can upgrade it as you go, whether there's a treasure chest like hidden just out of sight or around a rock or something. So don't feel like you have to like really explore every nook and cranny to make sure you don't miss anything, but there is some pretty cool stuff out there, as well as like Duma crystals, basically upgrade crystals for your Duma that allows you to expend and upgrade your Duma, like the range or how stealthy you are, or various effects that it has in combat, which is another thing that really is kind of transformed by the inclusion of the Duma, because it allows you to do things like get the jump on a lot of enemies or blindside them, I think is what they call it in game, which allows you to like strike from the side or try to like run out of character really fast, but then like do a like a 180 or like a swing around and attack from behind instead at a last minute to like throw them off guard, do extra damage, and get all kinds of extra endurance for that round as a part of that. And what I really love about the whole combat mechanics here is that there's actually no transition between you like going to start an attack and the fight just beginning. There's not like a transition period. It's really nice. One of the other great things is that the combat, when you level up, you can actually expend your levels on kind of like a sphere grid, practically like it's straight out of Final Fantasy X. So you can upgrade different stats, and different skills and stuff can be unlocked, kind of like Final Fantasy XI. Feels very, very similar to all of that. Puts you in the driver's seat and kind of helps give the flexibility to the player to see like, well, what do I need in a teammate, and see how can I spend those points on them to make them fit what I need. The artificial intelligence of the characters when you're in those fights, well, they kind of die a lot, so they're kind of dumb, but so did I, so I'm kind of dumb too, I guess. The game does bring some challenge, especially when you feel like going in over your head and fighting some bosses that maybe you're not supposed to fight just yet. But I did it anyway because I was just having a lot of fun, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. One of the other visual quirks about the game is that I feel like the characters have sort of that like almost plasticky skin tone kind of texture to them. They look a little too much like a toy model or something. I don't know. It doesn't bug me too much in motion, but when I see them talking and the flip flaps don't really match up to the English voiceover, it just kind of makes it especially like immersion breaking at some points. But that doesn't really matter too much to me, honestly. Like, the whole story as a whole has me engaged. The gameplay is a lot of fun. The exploration loop is a lot of fun. And the customization and just basically this whole thing feels like it's a really nicely done game so far. And it's apparently going to play through, it takes about like 30 to 60 hours, depending on how much of the extra stuff that you do. I say definitely don't sleep on this game if this sort of thing looks like it's up your alley, especially if maybe you're like a Tales fan. Then this is definitely one that has a lot of similarities, and a similar composer, Motoi Sakuraba, returning to work on Star Ocean: The Divine Force is pretty dang awesome. Dude always just kills it every single time he's involved in making soundtracks, and this game has a stellar soundtrack for sure. The game is also coming to PS4, PS5, Xbox consoles, as well as PC, so you have your pick of the litter on whatever platform you want to play it on. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you're new here, get subscribed because I'm SuperDerek. I make a bunch of stuff like this, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day, everybody.